Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. Hope everyone is having an amazing day today. We got so much going on today. So much going on. But good morning. It's Thursday, January 12th, and today is National Pharmacist Day. It's National Marzipan Day, whatever the hell that is. National Curry Chicken Day. And, of course, Gretchen, that's right. It is National Kiss a Ginger Day. Wow. Thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms, especially right here on YouTube. We're live every Monday through Friday on YouTube and audio only on Clubhouse. And if you are joining us in Clubhouse, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief comment on the story most recently presented. Without further ado, we're going to pay a quick bill real quick and get right back to the news. You want to grow some of the best weed in the world? Then you must start with the best genetics in the world. Go to www.dnagenetics.shop to order regular, feminized, or autoflower beans. All of your favorite DNA genetics cultivars such as Kosher Kush, Skywalker Kush, and oh yeah, Chocolate Truffle Shuffle. Boasting more cannabis awards for their award-winning genetics than any other company in the world. Remember to go to www.dnagenetics.shop to see why our terps don't lie. Oh, yeah. Rico, what's going on with your lighting? What you got? You in a blackout over there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I can see you.
That is
looks
really
like the power's out of your house.
Switch the camera. What's that? I'm going to switch the camera.
Looks like your power's out over there.
Better?
There we go.
There you go. There we go. Now you're live.
Now we can see you.
There's gonna be some rain. Gotta be some pain, but as long as I know. Welcome back, everybody. You are now. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Welcome back, everybody. You are now tuned into High at 9 News. Thanks for joining us, not only to get High at 9 with us, but also high noon on the East Coast. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street, and today is Thursday, January 12th, 2023. Also National Pharmacist Day, so be sure you take time out to thank the real ones you've been provided drugs to by, and who have provided drugs to your community over the years, legally or illegally. National Curry Chicken Day, also an international day of mourning for buttholes. And also Kiss a Ginger Day.
Yep, that's right.
And I pray safety of Gretchen Gailey. And hope she's packing heat like the real conservative Southern girl would be that she pretends to be daily. Everybody out there watching, please remember to like, share, follow us on the High at 9 News across all social media platforms, and beat that subscribe button down like the cops. We are live on weekdays on YouTube and Twitch, audio only on Clubhouse. And if you choose the Clubhouse route, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief question or comment on the story presented. We'll get things started here in just a few seconds, but first we have a message from our sponsors.
We've already done it. We've already done the sponsor. We've already done the sponsor part, bro.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, come on, bro. Get with the program.
Fuck your program, dude.
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
Well, first
say that on the football field.
The Mink-Co wearing, private jet hopping, Green Street wheeling and dealing, longest continuously operating retailer in the game when he's not holding down presidential cannabis tourism meetings and duties in his own backyard in West Hollywood. He gets spotted daily by TMZ, pot politicking across the globe with world leaders in London, Mar-a-Lago, and Detroit. We're all of them everywhere. They call him White Gucci, Gucci Blanco, and El Presidente. Coming to the stage first, smoking on the best weed in the world, Jason Beck.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for that, Rico. That was a fantastic introduction this morning. And today, my news, you guys are going to love this story, okay? I cannot wait to tell you guys about this. Because New York, where's New York City's second marijuana dispensary will be located and when it will be open. It's talking about being legal to go buy pot in this old Chase Bank in Union Square they're talking about in New York when everyone is just standing outside selling weed. Nearly 2 weeks after the state's first adult use marijuana dispensary opened up in New York City, another one is set to open. This time it will be in Union Square. It's called the Union Square Travel Agency. That's the most ridiculous name. And it will open up in an old Chase Bank near the Union Square subway station. It's set to have its soft opening on February 13th. Of the proceedings, 51% will go to the DOE Fund, DOE Fund. I don't want people thinking it's the Dow Fund, which provides housing, career training, and counseling to marginalized people living in New York City. The first legal dispensary for adult use cannabis in New York opened on December 28th in Manhattan with 4,400 square foot corner building at Broadway and Astor Place, which used to be a Gap store. It marked a long-awaited launch of a marijuana industry that could become one of the country's most lucrative. It already is lucrative. It wasn't immediately clear what items the Union Square shop would be selling. At the city's other dispensary, the Housing Works Cannabis Company, customers can find a range of prices of products from $20 for an edibles container to a flower or plant, which you can roll into a joint for between $40 to $95. Cannabis vape kits will also sell for around $95 as well. Governor Kathy Hochul announced on December 21st that Housing Works, a minority-controlled nonprofit in Manhattan that serves people with HIV and AIDS, would be the first of 36 recently licensed dispensaries to begin selling cannabis to the general public. Even though dozens of illegal shops have been operating for many months. In the coming months, the state is expected to issue an additional 139 licenses with about 900 applicants waiting to learn their fate. The state reserved its first round of retail licenses for applicants with marijuana convictions or their relatives. Plus, some nonprofit groups had also planned a $200 million public-private fund to aid social equity applicants, but yet no one can find where that money is at and what is going on in New York. I'm going to digress for a minute, and this is Jason Beck reporting for the High at 9 News Hour. What do you guys think? Are you guys going to go to the second store in New York? Or has New York's bubble already bursted?
The bubble hasn't burst, but it's going to be a long time before they get things right.
Sure, it's not like a oozing pimple.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah, it's like official too old, poorly held outdoor at the legal stores, or like the best of the best, freshest trap weed on the planet, available on any plastic Lifetime table anywhere outside. Your choice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm going for the plastic Lifetime.
It's just
table.
quality, man. Like, everybody keeps talking taxes and keeps talking all this shit, but man, it's just quality. If you got quality weed, it doesn't matter what the price is, bro. You're gonna sell all of it.
That part, I believe that part.
Hallelujah.
Really?
Yeah. We do have Nicole Buffong up from the audience. What do you have to say about this, Nicole?
Hey, good morning, team.
Good morning.
I will not be buying cannabis in Times Square.
No,
I don't buy my food in Times Square. I don't shop at Sephora in Times Square. So I definitely will not be buying my cannabis in Times Square. I'm going to be looking for shops that are probably in Harlem and Black owned, which I'm sure this one in Times Square is not.
Right.
It is.
Isn't it Union Square?
Union Square.
Whatever. Sorry.
Whatever square it is, they're squared up.
Square the fuck up.
Regardless of where this place is located, and I hear exactly what you're saying, Nicole, it's still a good thing to see that this market is moving forward. It is opening stores, despite what Jason Beck thinks, and despite him not owning up to any of his bets. Yes, it's a good
Got
thing.
your $100 right here, Gretchen.
Still.
12 days, people, 12 days.
And I think
it must be all the rain.
you're absolutely right, Gretchen.
Yes.
It's good to see that it is becoming a mainstream thing. But I'm still interested in trying to understand how they're going to shut down all of the illegal dispensaries that look like quite legit dispensaries in New York. How they're going to shut all those down to allow the legal market to come in and thrive. That's going to be interesting.
Well, and I have a question, and I'm not as up on the New York market. Maybe you know, Nicole. Are all of them required to be doing some type of charitable donation, giving back? Because I find it
All
odd
of the
that first two
nonprofits,
dispensaries,
all the
that's their
nonprofits
thing.
are required. All the nonprofits,
all the
yes,
nonprofits
all the
got up running?
nonprofits, yeah, 51% is owned by their nonprofit, and 51% of revenues will be funneled into that nonprofit.
And how many are nonprofits?
I'm not sure the exact number, how many nonprofits they were going to issue licenses to. I know there was a number of nonprofits that, if I was going to take a guess, I'd just say probably around 100, 120.
Jason,
But
do you think
that's a
model
guess.
for
That's a
success?
total guess.
Is that a model for success?
Okay.
No, it's a model for distress. And I'm willing to bet that a bunch of these so-called stores that are opening that Gretchen is celebrating will not be open 5 years from now.
How many? What
Well, I think
percentage?
you
What
could say
percentage?
that about all businesses, restaurants, all sorts of things don't stay open, but at least they're getting there. They're trying. They're making a start. So don't be a hater, Jason. It's too
I'm not
early
being
to
a
call
hater.
it.
I'm being a realist.
You're
Just
hating.
being a realist.
Whatever.
Just
Hate.
saying.
Hate.
It's not hate. I'm
It ain't
putting
love.
this
They hate the
page.
truth, Jason. They hate the truth. They hate
Of course
reality.
they do. They don't like reality because they want to live in this little circle jerk. They're like, hey, look at us. We opened up a store, and hey, look at we're selling weed. When you have real social equity outside on a card table
Word.
selling weed.
You want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
But you
That's
know what?
the real
You know
social
what-
equity.
you know
It's
what,
outside
Gretchen?
on the street.
Today you
Straight
get
up,
free
bro.
pieces, so you win.
You know, the genie's out of the bottle.
New
this
York's
one.
a massive market, and there'll be people buying from the secondary market. There'll be people buying from the new dispensaries that open. There's going to be legitimate and secondary sales, and it's going to be massive and amazing. I mean, there's a gajillion people here.
What about you?
Hold on,
It's,
Dr. Mary.
It's just getting started.
Dr. Mary, you're on the ground there.
Yeah.
Have you gone to see the new dispensary, the one that's at least open so far? What do you
Did you
think
buy
of it?
some overpriced dried out weed?
I've been staying close to home and working on my ketamine clinic project, and and taking care of my dog
Oh,
and
you've been-
cooking dinner. I really have not been.
You've been going in the K-hole,
Yeah.
huh?
K, yeah.
It's I've been in a K-hole. Yeah, I mean, it's Q1, and everybody is focused on getting your business organized for the remainder of the year. At least that's what I do during Q1. So I haven't had a chance to step out much. I think I am going to have a few meetings next week out of the house, though, and so that'll be fun.
Start
But
calling you Dr.
yeah,
K.
I mean, I think there's just not everybody is going to buy from a secondary market. They're just not going to feel comfortable. And then, and so it expands the audience that's going to be purchasing and thinking about using cannabis, and they're going to need to learn how to use it and feel confident about their products. So I'm totally excited about what's happening in New York.
I mean, Dr. Mary, I gotta be serious about this, okay? If you're in New York, the cost of living is already extremely exorbitant, okay? And people are penny pinching just for normal daily their daily necessities. If you had the choice and you had $100, are you gonna go and that's your $100 to go and buy weed? Are you going to go to a store where they're going to charge you $100 for an eighth, or are you going to go to the streets where you can probably get maybe 2 or 3 eighths for that $100? What are you going to do?
Well, I mean, are you going to compromise everything that you've worked for to save a couple of bucks? And,
how are you compromising
and
anything?
Perform a criminal activity?
Jason,
That's not a criminal activity. There's no one going to jail for buying weed. So how are you going to compromise yourself?
Jason, I hear what you're saying about price. However,
Basic economics.
Easy killer. What about the mom or someone who wants to buy legal weed, at least something that they can trust has been tested before they give it to a medical patient?
This is actually where I was going with this question, and that's why I was asking it to Dr. Mary. That's why I was asking it to Dr. Mary.
Nobody cares about saving $20 on Manhattan. I mean, I pulled up a few days. I actually did leave and came back in a car. And when I pulled up in front of my apartment, there were 3 Range Rovers out front, and there was a Mercedes in front of one of the Range Rovers. I mean, there's just so much money in Manhattan that I don't think anybody is looking to save $20. I mean, if you're disabled and a home grow candidate, you know, that's a problem in Manhattan. But you know, they don't live, you know, anywhere near both of these dispensaries. You know, these dispensaries are for the anxious mom who wants to have half a gummy before she goes to sleep, and they're going to serve that community well.
So basically what you're saying is that this market is for the stiletto stoners. Stiletto. Yes.
Pumps.
I don't really know why anybody goes to a dispensary when you can get the Delta 9 THC derived from hemp delivered to your home in the mail.
There goes that Delta 8 plug.
I mean,
the hate.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the real.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But Delta 9.
Why pay those exorbitant taxes for no reason? Exactly.
Really?
Why pay those
I really wonder where.
I wonder that all the time too, Dr. Mary. I'm glad you said that and wasn't me. I'm just agreeing. What you got to say about that, Gretchen?
I got to say, we got to keep moving if you're going to hear from the rest of us.
This is to Gretchen.
Oh, man, that was good. That was good. Thank you so much for that. Coming up next, it is the dope dad himself. That's right, Rico Lamitte. When he is babysitting, you can quite often find him doing dad types of things. Braiding hair, having tea parties, but making sure that he teaches his daughter to any time that you have a tea party that you always sip your tea with your pinkies up. That's right. He also has to teach grown-ass adults that generally when he serves them coffee and tea and crumpets at a TEDx convention in the waiting room. That's right. He always with the pinkies up. That's right. It is the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Thank you so much, Jason. Definitely appreciate that. And I would like to say that tea parties at our house, they stay lit.
The tea party is at your house.
Dude, tea parties just stay lit, man. South Central tea parties. Think about it. All right, so my story today is from MJ Biz Daily by Chris Roberts. Marijuana firms' main funders of recent legalization efforts overtaking advocacy groups. So, reported cannabis companies provided nearly all of the money behind the 5 legalization initiatives in last November's midterm elections, representing a dramatic shift from a decade ago when marijuana reform's principal bankrollers were advocacy groups and wealthy individuals. Are the days of bottom-up, people-funded, activist-driven, grassroots, organized campaign for legalization, are those days behind us? I thought I had permanently left corporate America for cannabis in 2016. My friends, family, and colleagues all thought that the cancer scare pushed me temporarily off the deep end, and they all swore I'd be back as quick as I left. 7 years later, still in this shit, still standing with the people, and still doing my part to expose the systemic hypocrisy in corporate capitalism. But I gotta admit, shit done changed a lot since then. A lot. Prior to making the move official that year, cannabis already saved my life twice. First round kept food on my table, clothes on my back, and a roof over my head. I don't matter how many top degrees, rich boosters, and screaming fans were in the student section yesterday when you're a homeless drug addict breaking into cars for spare change today. I pushed packs post-graduation in Chicago to move out the back seat of my Chevy Monte Carlo as an injured, failed NFL prospect, chewed up and spat out by the NCAA. They called me a student athlete, emphasis on student first, brainwashed me to believe it was a privilege to be college educated and okay for them to build world-class stadiums and new buildings on campus off me and my teammates' sacrifices without us ever seeing a penny of that profit. Round 2, 6 years into my career in finance. Your boy's pockets were fat as fuck, but any and everybody who knew the real Rico knew that I sold out for a check. I said, fuck them. They ain't go through what I went through. And for the first time in my life, people called me successful. Being behind the fake smiles, tailored suits, and Gucci shades, I was quietly losing the battle to addiction and in a dark place mentally and emotionally. A chance intervention on a work trip to LA by a highly educated dispensary owner experienced in treating addiction led me on my path to breaking dependency. After 2 trips to rehab, weed therapy was the only treatment that stuck with me. Round 3 was more symbolic, removing the corporate mask and finally becoming the real me full-time, shifting into what we'd soon all be calling the cannabis industry. I became an advocate for safe access and an activist fighting for an equitable marketplace. I followed NORML, MPA, and DPP on a national level, joined SCC, MCA, and founded Indica on a local level. We knocked on doors to fund the fight for legalization back when corporate America did not have time to listen to a bunch of dumb, lazy stoners. 7 short years later, them grassroots done dried all the way up. And newly released campaign finance records revealed 2022 adult use legalization efforts in Arkansas, Maryland, Missouri, and North and South Dakota raised nearly $20 million combined. Per the article, 19 of that, 95%, came from sources identifiable as cannabis industry businesses. MJ Biz says the shift shows new priorities, with existing medical companies pushing for limited license markets in adult use states, in contrast to past advocacy-driven campaigns merely asking voters to treat weed like alcohol. Do the 2022 election results foreshadow future legalization efforts in currently prohibitive states? MPP and DPA shifted gears into psychedelics and the decriminalization of other drugs. But with November midterms mixed result wins in Maryland and Missouri and losses in Arkansas and North and South Dakota, I think it's pretty clear industry-driven campaigns ain't gonna work without including the voices and initiatives that matter most to the people that benefit most from the plant's power to heal, not potential for profit. While billion-dollar MSOs push for limited license markets, activists want justice reform, home grow allowances, and social equity baked into these laws. One of my favorite critical industry voices right now is attorney and former Massachusetts state cannabis regulator Shailene Title. She's consistently speaking out on industrial overreach at the expense of the original legalization movement's social justice roots. In the article, in response to the campaign finance data drop, she said this: voters care about the details of legalization bills and the market structure. When you have wannabe monopolists directly writing measures, the trend has been for them to propose market structures that are increasingly brazen and unserious. The lesson moving forward is we give up on the idea of buying or tricking voters into giving you a monopoly by funding a ballot initiative, and I agree. The reason I believe the industry will never succeed in its current format, why we continue to see record quarterly losses from multinational corporations whose models have dominated mainstream business, is because cannabis is different. The movement began with the people. Racism pushed cannabis underground, and capitalism pushed profit-driven opioids over plant-based medicine. After 100 years of prohibition telling us what we can and can't call medicine or put into our bodies because it don't fit with your narrative or follow your agenda, y'all really think that we're just going to roll over and let y'all make the rules of this shit? No. It came from the people, generations of people, and it's going to continue going that way. So if you want to move forward with your rules, you have to incorporate the voices of the people who have done this generationally. It's just not going to work. And until then, the trap lives to see another day. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street. I'd love to hear what the rest of the team has to say about this. Are we in a new era of corporate capitalist cannabis, or is it going to be more of the same? The trap will never die.
Well, I mean, I'm going to say the trap is never going to die because elected officials and politicians still aren't doing anything on a federal level to deschedule cannabis. And on local and state levels, all they keep doing is imposing more regulations and more taxes.
Right.
I really enjoyed your share, Rico. Thank you for the look into who you are and what makes you you. And I like how you you paired that with your story, and I like the narrative throughput.
Thanks, man.
And the biggest thing here is the thing that I think we all keep hammering on. It's like there's a real, the thing that draws people to high quality cannabis is exactly that, high quality. It's the quality of the flavor, the quality of the high, the quality of the production. And these folks who thought they were going to widgetize cannabis and show us how it's going to be done are being taught one of the first lessons of cannabis, which is humility. And they're being humbled to find out that there's something bigger going on than just some, drugged out idiots, running around spending a bunch of money on Louis Vuitton purses. That's music videos and hype you see on TV. That's not the reality.
Their pockets are getting humbled, right, Matthew?
Yes, sir. But I'd like to expand on that and say it doesn't matter where you came from. You don't have to ever have sold a single eighth of weed to anybody to be involved and welcome in the cannabis and psychedelic communities. It's about how you navigate. Because really, when it comes right down to it, we're all from Earth. We're all one human family. We're never going to solve this problem of what the hell is going on this planet as long as we continue to cut people into us versus them and pursue this dichotomy, because it just makes enemies and it makes wars and it makes factions. Yep. And so what I think we need to do as legacy cannabis actors is welcome these people into the space and help to guide them and stay active and stay involved and stay in their ear and stay pushing them towards a direction. And like for myself, I've integrated and worked with a lot of traditional business people, and I haven't gotten them all high. I've gotten some of them high. I haven't gotten them all to smoke the DMT pen. I've gotten some of them to hit the pen. But what I have done is,
have you got any of them to dab DMT? Because that's the real experience.
No, but what I have done is I've been able to show people that there are people who use cannabis and psychedelics that are sober-minded and intelligent and have a good sense of humor, are fairly well-adjusted, and that there's actually something in this world. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is welcoming people into this legacy while at the same time protecting it so that we can all move forward in something that's more resembling wholeness. And sorry if I'm rambling, but I drank a lot of coffee again today.
No, that's very well stated. I agree with you. I mean, I think so many people that are really driving are very egocentric, and they have an elevated ego. And I think they find it even hard to consume cannabis because it's a leveling, it's an ego destroying agent, like mushrooms. So you take somebody who's just rocking on their personal ego, and that's where they get their personal energy, and then destroy their ego. They don't like it, and they don't really understand it. I always feel like that's a mark of a personality when people say, well, he doesn't like to smoke weed, but that's okay, when they're dating a new guy. And I'll be like, if he doesn't like to smoke weed, that's a little bit of a red flag. Like if he prefer to use alcohol or cocaine, you're talking about somebody who's doesn't really have control of their ego yet.
We do have Dr. Felicia from the audience to say something on this. What do you have to say about this, Dr. Felicia?
Great story, Rico. Your treatment of it was amazing. Two things about what your question was: will the trap live on? The trap will always live on. Cannabis has been around for thousands and thousands of years. No matter what the government tries to do, it will always be there. Number one. Number two, vertical integration is not the way to do this. Vertical integration should be a voluntary thing that businesses do, which they started to do, in the late 1800s with Carnegie Steel and today with Walmart, Target. They're trying to control all their supply points, but that's not necessary. That should be a voluntary thing. Everybody should be able to get into this market wherever they want to get in, be it a grower, a dispensary, or processor. Everybody should be able to get in where they want to get in. This mandatory vertical integration is coming from deep pockets and the corporate MSOs. Lastly, when alcohol prohibition ended, it was because the people were saying, you can't kill alcohol. You got bootleggers everywhere. People in their Gucci coats like Jason, just flaunting alcohol everywhere despite the laws. And the people here are saying, we are not going to give up cannabis. And the politicians eventually heard them and finally did it. So the problem is, what is going on with the politicians today? Why are they not listening to the people? We are already at that point where the public is demanding it be legalized. So Gretchen could probably answer that a lot more than we could. Why is Congress not listening? And I'm done speaking.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Felicia.
Because Congress listens to corporations, not the people.
All right. Well, while I appreciate your story, Rico, I think we're all missing the point of this story. The point of the story, and you all keep asking why no one's listening to the people. Put your money down, Jason, because when you ain't gonna do nothing with it. Is that all of the fundraising done in these adult use market campaigns came from business. It did not come from the advocates. It did not come from the people. So that's why the people are not going to get heard. That's why the interests of businesses are always going to be put forward first. That's why MSOs are going to succeed over the boutiques. If the people want to be a part of the discussion, they have to also be a part of the advocacy. And these groups are dropping off left and right because they can't raise the money anymore. That's
Corporations have hijacked the messaging. They've hijacked the messaging,
they
and
haven't
it's not.
hijacked
So
shit.
I have a
made
question.
Money.
I have
They
a
made
question.
money to spend.
Go ahead, Dr. Felicia.
Yes,
Well, somebody's
yes,
gotta
they
mute.
did. Yes, corporations did hijack the process because corporations are not people. The government is there for the people, not for corporations.
I don't know. Mitt Romney told me that corporations are people.
Well, what we're seeing is so cannabis legalization or the slow march towards regulation in America is literally a class. It could be a college 101 class on capitalism, economics, and what happens when transnational vertically integrated capitalism comes into any free market economy. And what you see is these people who already have the biggest lever and the biggest stick trying to use that lever to leverage everyone else out. But what I would counter you with, Gretchen, is if we look at alcohol, if we look at farm-raised food, if we look at connoisseur grade tobacco, I know my friend buys pipe tobacco from a gentleman who grows 2 acres of tobacco every year and cures his own tobacco. I've seen this guy's house. He lives in North Carolina. He's got a wonderful spread. He's got 4 kids. He goes on vacations. The guy's able to completely navigate his life growing 2 acres of tobacco. And tobacco was never made illegal. And tobacco is controlled by R.J. Reynolds and these guys that are transnational corporations. But what they can't do with their transnational corporation widgetization is create a cannabis that actual connoisseur level smokers want to smoke. Now, what this means is you can survive creating quality connoisseur level products. I have a couple friends who make wine. They make a few hundred cases of wine and they do great. They can go to Hawaii when they want. They're not millionaires. They're not creating generational wealth. But what they are doing is they're living a good life, creating a good product and a good vibe, and they are in demand. And I think that we're going to see that market do that forever. So yes, the market's going to bifurcate into where it looks like the McDonald's of weed are controlling it. But when you start to look more and you want anything more than a 99-cent deal on a pre-roll, what you're going to find is a rich environment of people actually care about what they're doing. And I think I'm just going to keep hammering on the same thing. Quality will survive. Quality of product and navigation.
I don't think I've ever said that the boutique market is going to die. I think it's absolutely going to be that market there. Yeah. I think for those who jump up and down and say that it's the only way, you're living in fantasy land.
Well, that part is true.
What I'm getting at with the story is the people who marched, the people who started the conversation, the people who actually wanted legalization to help people, leaving their sentiments, leaving their arguments, their voices out of the conversation because you got clout and you got connections to put this into law. All you're doing is pushing people back into the trap. Because we already don't trust the people who write the laws. We already don't trust big pharma, big tobacco, and big alcohol. That's why we get our shit from the trap, right? Like, if you want there to stop, you want this friction to stop in between big corporate interests and people on the ground just trying to make a way for their family, just trying to get medicine. You got to include the messages and the voices of the OGs that started this shit.
Rico,
that has to happen, or you're going to continue to have quarterly loss after quarterly loss. I'm like, oh yeah, we don't know why this is doing this. We don't know why.
Here's what I'm saying.
You appropriated an entire industry, straight up.
Rico,
that's what we have.
That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying if you want those voices to still be heard and for them to be a part of it, you need to say to MPP, DPA, this fight is not over. Don't move on to other drugs. Don't move on to psilocybin. They're the ones who are choosing to leave the industry behind because they can't make the money.
EPA speaks for
they're talking about psychedelics now.
Well, so Gretchen, you do have a good point, and a lot of people in the illicit cannabis economy having to move forward to cannabis, but also a lot of people are moving into media, are moving into art, are moving it back into business. But at the heart of this capitalist system that currently has us all by the balls, unless you want to live under a freeway overpass, you have to compromise yourself. And I think it's really important for folks like yourself who are very intelligent and understand this, and all of us in the conversation, we can't just start hammering at people's need to make money to survive, because then it literally makes us all completely insincere. We are trapped in a system that is thousands of years old, that is not of our making. And there's nonviolent revolution and hunger strike to death or there's violent revolution and being assassinated by the government, or there's a middle way where you compromise a little bit and you put some food on the table and you try to move the wheel yourself in your personal sphere through your navigation in your local community and politics and in greater politics if you have that ability.
Yes, sir.
And
yes,
that's
sir.
what I would posit.
We got to cut it off. We got to keep on moving. We got to keep on moving. All right. So up next, speaking of the spicy redheaded conservative with Mayflower roots and long form Ellis Island paperwork to back him up. Well known in DC circles over the years for cooking up bipartisan excellence in the kitchen and slapping down liberal policies on K Street. Up next, you know who it is, the founder of Panoptic Strategies and High at 9 News' very own Washington insider, Gretchen Gailey.
Thank you. Thank you. My only point is advocates need to do their jobs. My headline is Kentucky Senate President open to medical marijuana on a limited basis with restrictions. This is coming from Kentucky Health News. And this is kind of a follow-up to all we've been harping on when it comes to Kentucky. State Senate President Robert Stivers suggested Monday night that he might be willing to approve medical marijuana in Kentucky on a very limited basis to relieve patients' pain at the end of their lives. But he cast fresh doubt on whether relief actually comes from cannabis or rather from the expectation that it will. He said, I am working with others to see how we could get to a yes to take care of those who are at their end of life. It was the first sign of compromise on the issue from Stivers, who has been the major obstacle to medical cannabis bills passed by the State House. He said, I've seen family members go through cancer treatments, and in no way do I want to be unsympathetic. After repeating his desire to see more research on it and making other points, he said the use of cannabis in palliative care can easily be defended under the old choice of evils principle of English common law. In such cases, I don't think you would ever be arrested. I don't think you would be convicted. A Manchester attorney, Stivers briefly noted without explanation, a National Geographic story published online January 6, it cited a study that found 67% of the relief from pain reported by people treated with cannabinoids was also seen among those who received a placebo. This suggests that the pain reduction was not due primarily to compounds found in cannabis, but to people's expectations that it would help. And that positive expectation was based in part, says the authors, on over-enthusiastic media coverage. Reputable studies so far have not found that cannabinoids sufficiently reduce pain, which led the International Association for the Study of Pain in 2021 to decline to endorse these drugs. Even as he cast new doubt, Stivers suggested what a medical cannabis system could look like. He said that the state could require names of all owners of cannabis dispensaries to be public to prevent abuse and have a computer network to monitor cannabis prescriptions and how the drug is ingested, saying marijuana smoke has 50% more carcinogens than tobacco smoke. Last year, after the Senate again declined to take up the House bill that would have legalized medical marijuana, Stivers pushed through a bill for cannabis research at the University of Kentucky. There's indicators out there that certain things are helped, he said. Let's research the issue. After last year's legislative session, Governor Andy Beshear named a group to study the issue, then used his pardon power in an executive order allowing people with a medical provider statement saying that they have at least 21 specified medical conditions to possess up to 8 ounces of cannabis for medical purposes in Kentucky if bought legally in another state. Cannabis is not legal in Indiana and Tennessee, and the medical cannabis laws of Ohio and West Virginia do not apply to out-of-state residents. Missouri and Virginia have passed laws to legalize cannabis for recreational use, but the Missouri law is not expected to take effect until at least February, and Virginia is not expected to have cannabis dispensaries until next year. That means Illinois is the only bordering state where Kentuckians can use Beshear's order. Beshear, a Democrat seeking re-election, says the better alternative to Illinois would be passage of a medical cannabis law by Kentucky's Republican-controlled legislature, but leaders in the two chambers disagree on which one should deal with the legislation first. House leaders say it should start in the Senate since their chamber has passed it twice, but Senate Majority Floor Leader Damon Thayer of Georgetown says the House should still go first. Stivers did not give his opinion on that point during the program, which touched on several legislative issues. Some Democratic House members want the legislature to offer voters a constitutional amendment on the issue, but Stivers said some of the UK research will be back before the constitutional amendment could even go to the ballot in November 2024. This is an excellent case study, Rico, to see if we can get these advocates out there and actually push for a medical law that makes sense. I like that this guy is semi-willing to budge, although what he's using for research, I don't know where the hell he's come up with some of this stuff. Perhaps Dr. Felicia or Dr. Mary can enlighten us. Either way, it's good to see some headway in Kentucky, but there's going to have to be some real advocacy push to get this done. This is Gretchen for High at 9 News.
I mean,
I don't understand the persistent, delay in getting medical cannabis available in all 50 states or putting such severe restrictions on its use.
It's fundamentalist
it's
Christianity.
just so safe.
It's fundamentalist Abrahamic religion.
It's
period.
racism.
It's fundamentalist religion.
Just continuing to make it available to support.
Placebo medicine argument that people are just believing
the placebo effect. Yeah, the placebo effect has been shown in trials in the last 10 years to actually overrule drug efficacy in a lot of cases. Our consciousness and our belief is really important. Is really powerful. That's why I forgot the mouse's name, but he gave Dumbo the magic feather. And then it turns out it wasn't the feather; it was Dumbo's belief in himself. Bam. But I had a quick aside about that.
Hold on. You're quoting a Disney movie of all things. Michael,
why you mad though, Jason? You don't understand. If you don't get it, you don't get it, Jason.
The teacher is everywhere, Jason. The teacher is everywhere. We just have to humble ourselves to be the student.
Depends on what they're teaching.
Hold on, I have an aside as the carcinogens, right? So as long ago as 1974, the DEA and the NIH funded a study at the Medical College of Virginia, funded by Richard Nixon in his avid drug war to destroy the left, and they wanted to find evidence of immune suppression or cancer in cannabis users, right? And so instead what they found that the THC was slowing the growth of 3 kinds of cancer: lung, breast, and virus-induced leukemia. And then Nixon shut the whole project down right before he resigned and got booted out of office, and Gerald Ford took over. So there's been clear proof of cannabis's efficacy with cancer. But now the thing that you get, and I learned this from Paul Stamets in his work with mushrooms and cancer, there are multiple types of cancer. So if you say breast cancer, there's actually like 50 kinds of breast cancer. Now, not only that, each one of us, there's an infinity of different DNA types. There's major genotypes in DNA. And so there's the type of cancer you get and your major genotype. And then there's a mushroom. Now, this mushroom is going to help for like 80% of the cancers with 70% of the genotypes because it's natural. And there's another mushroom that'll help with some genotypes and not others, and some cancers and not others. And it's the same with cannabis. Cannabis will help some people with pain reduction. It will help some people with tumor lessening. And I've seen that happen with friends. Maybe it's just anecdotal, but at the same point, it depends on what your genotype is and what the type of cancer you have because it's a natural substance.
Hey, Count, I do have to say,
yeah,
Dumbo was racist as fuck. Them crows are racist.
Sorry.
As all get out.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that.
The new one is coming out.
Yeah, it's always hard.
Yeah, the new one's coming out.
To have people
because
be
he had big
looking
ears.
at the existing research and then saying that the research doesn't support that it controls pain because of exactly what was just said, that so much of the research was stopped when positive benefits were identified. Whereas if you were working for Big Pharma and you were trying to prove that the next up and coming antidepressant worked on depression, you limited or squelched the research that showed that it was no better than placebo and pushed the other research forward so that you could build a multi-million-dollar empire, billion-dollar empire. So I just don't trust so much of the research that's being touted as proof that this product doesn't work. And it's hard to imagine that it doesn't, after working with so many people and talking to so many advocates within the industry. To simply say that it's a placebo effect is just, that dude needs to get high.
I mean, the placebo effect is real. I'm a big believer in the placebo effect. If it don't mind, it don't matter. You know what I mean? But we got to pay a quick bill. We're gonna come right back. Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX, located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention like to get high at 9 for 10% off your full order. The thoughts and opinions and general overall shade thrown on High 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of any other speaker or its followers. The statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, and our speakers make no representation regarding the legal status of any substance in any country, area, territory, or any authorities. The views expressed in this room do not establish any fiduciary relationship. Our sponsors do not imply or constitute any endorsement by us or the expression of any opinion whatsoever on the part of any speaker on stage. If you are easily offended person, the show is probably not for you, and maybe you should try the placebo effect.
Maybe.
At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit and hustle and diversity of our great city of Angels, and we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what made us LA's favorite OG. True Classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah. This Wisconsin-rooted, Fresno-based raptivist represents the strong black conservative voice mainstream media and Joe Biden do not want you to know exists. But I'll tell you what, the haters and race baiters will not block out the black side of liberty, perpetually exposing the man and the myths out there that we consume every single day. Coming to the stage next, and we're very, very happy to have him on video today, is my man himself, Nikolas Wildstar. What you got?
All right, I did it. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, loud and clear, bro.
Yeah, Wildstar in the building. What's up? Shit. All right, y'all. Happy 2023 to all of y'all. Democrat Representative Bob Freeman filed the Free All Cannabis for Tennesseans, or FACT Act, initiating cannabis legalization in the state. We're leaving money on the table, he said. If you look at Arkansas, that has medical only, they're projecting they made $25 million in tax revenue. Realistically, any bill approving recreational cannabis in Tennessee is unlikely to pass this year, as most Republicans are adamantly against it. I am diametrically opposed and do not support it at all. Legalization of recreational use of marijuana or cannabis in the state of Tennessee, Senate Majority Leader and Republican Jack Johnson said. But medical cannabis is a different story. We have moved the needle in that regard in recent years, Johnson said. I'm certainly open to advancing that ball. He's one of several Republicans who have opened the door for at least some sort of cannabis reform in Tennessee. I'm convinced in talking to medical professionals that there is benefit for the use of these chemicals for certain people who suffer from certain type of ailments, Johnson said. Republican backing from a party leader like him is big for cannabis pundits, but other Republican leaders don't see it the same way. It still remains to be a Schedule I drug, which means it's against federal law to possess it, Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally said. Now that it might change, but I'd still be opposed to the legalization of marijuana. McNally, who is a Republican and the Speaker of the Senate, pointed to the belief that cannabis is a gateway drug. Boo. People that want to use marijuana, they use it to relax or to escape reality. And you can get into other drugs that also do that, he said. Pretty soon, you think you're taking Vicodin or Loratab. I'm glad he brought up pharmaceutical drugs. And you're taking fentanyl. And that's the end of you. Polls show that there is a broad bipartisan support for cannabis, yet there hasn't ever been any true movement in the state. It's one of those things that if you do a poll, legalizing cannabis is extremely popular, Freeman said. The problem is that it's not on the top 10 for priorities. Essentially, he pointed out voters aren't willing to change their vote to a more cannabis-friendly candidate based on their willingness to legalize. And from my experience as one of those candidates, I can say without a doubt that is 100% true. Though Johnson signaled support for medical, he also made the point that he wants input from law enforcement as well. I'm going to continue to listen to the medical experts, Johnson said, but I'm also going to listen to law enforcement and the people who are worried about expanding access and availability to this. Whether any legalization passes remains to be seen. For now, the session rolls on with mostly procedural mechanics until after Governor Bill Lee's inauguration on January 21st. Reporting with the High News 9 News Hour, this is Nick Wildstar, a.k.a. the Governor. Speak now or forever hold your peace. And I'm out this bitch.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm glad that he's positioning himself in this way, saying that he's a supporter. It doesn't surprise me at all that he's hedging that at all by saying that he definitely wants law enforcement input at all. But that is some growth, and that area definitely needs growth. What do you think, Gretchen?
He's playing the game.
I like any market that's moving towards legalization. So I say you got to get things done. Go for it. I don't care.
Now, what do we know, Nikolas? Do we know the chances of this guy actually getting elected? Is there any poll data out there for him?
Well, the governor has already been elected, the new governor. He's just going to be sworn into office on January 21st.
Oh, got it.
So
Okay, I missed that
now
part. Sorry.
The state Senate that's stepping up to the plate. I guess their Congress is positioning themselves to move forward with medicinal legalization in the state, since he is, I guess, supportive of it. I don't really know much about the new governor. But that's what they're saying. It's pretty much because it's not at the top of people's priority list. Most likely that cannabis legalization won't happen within the next or within that governor's term, which is the next 4 years or so.
I'll tell you what, based off that. Go ahead, Gretchen. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say it may not be at the top of their priority list now, but if Kentucky does start moving forward, I think it will absolutely help Tennessee along. I think they're both going to push each other towards medical legalization sooner than they realize.
Based off of what Nikolas just that information Nikolas just provided, I smell a horse trade coming up, and I smell some political posturing by this member as maybe possibly a token to basically say, hey, we're willing to work with you, but we're definitely going to want some concessions in regards to.
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yep. He's like, hey, I'm down to play with this a little bit, but I still want to have law enforcement's input on this, but I'm willing to play. But at the same time, I'm going to want a lot of other stuff that you probably aren't going to be with.
Right.
Exactly.
So you better put your hand in my pocket now.
That's right. That's right.
In that motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That typical song and dance political theater we're used to. It's going to drag on.
I love kabuki theater, and I try to tell anyone anyone that doesn't understand politics that basically politics is America's telenovela.
It really is. Gretchen, so I got a question for you. Like, how much longer do you think the medical market is even going to be around? It's all going to adult use. It's all going to be recreational because
all use is medical use.
The medical industry, the medical industry, because it's all going towards capitalism. At the end of the day, it's all going towards money. So it's all going to be adult use at some point. How much longer will these quote unquote medical markets exist on a state level?
If you're asking for adult use on a federal level, I think you're at least 5 to 10 years out. I think medical is going to be around longer than you think. And I think if Congress is willing to move, I think if Joe Biden moves and just reschedules, I think medical is going to be much more prominent than people realize. I think that adult use will be left up to the states. I think that's. Let me
tell you something, Rico, based off your initial question.
Yeah.
If Joe Biden gets his way and pushes it to Schedule 3, all there will be is medical, and it'll all be pharmaceutical grade, and no plant medicine, and the trap will live forever. And with that, we got to keep it moving because he's a cannabis wizard doing his damnedest to continue the work of the merry pranksters and the Brotherhood of Eternal Love. Alongside this Hogwarts PhD in tripping balls, this co-host of What's Good, the Cannabis Flower and Hash Review Show, as well as he's also a host of Radio Free Earth, boasting over 33 years in the game for sales, genetics, cultivation, and also, too, in a lifetime because he is the immortal Transylvanian Count himself. That's right. Mathieu St. Germain.
Greetings, Brother Jason. Greetings, all. Here's my story today from my friends, the Beard Brothers. Psilocybin and MDMA show promise for veterans' mental health, according to a VA report. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has continued to research the effect of psychedelics on veterans' mental health conditions. However, while these research efforts may speak of future promise, it's imperative for more studies to be conducted to address the gaps in preliminary research. A recent study conducted by the department revealed that psychedelics like psilocybin and MDMA could be beneficial treatments in treating depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. The study forms one of 38 key studies which back the therapeutic potential of psychedelics. This was according to a report published by the VA's own Evidence Synthesis Program. MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for PTSD improves symptoms, leads to short-term remission, and creates a promise for the treatment for psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy. According to the report, psilocybin therapy could potentially reduce heavy drinking and lower alcohol consumption in those suffering from alcohol use disorder. It is within these gaps that the department's research found some doubt. They're saying that there's some gaps in between these reports. Despite promising results, researchers are doubting the idea that psychedelic ibogaine treatment by itself can effectively treat opioid-related withdrawal symptoms. They're also questioning whether or not treatment effects vary according to individual characteristics and disease severity. Researchers are also questioning whether or not treatment benefits are durable over long periods of time. At present, the Food and Drug Administration has designated psilocybin and MDMA as breakthrough therapies and has supported VA's ESP findings. Now, following an extensive study in therapeutic interventions involving psychedelic and psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, these compounds are now seen as novel treatments for adults suffering from mental health and substance use disorders. Psychedelics, while still holding strong in their promise to be an optimal treatment, are still in the early phase of development, and unfortunately, many gaps in evidence still do exist. This means that while promising, confidence in research findings remains low currently. The evidence on MDMA-assisted psychotherapy has several important research questions that need answering. Recommendations for future research pertain to the inclusion of veteran populations who suffer from combat-related trauma, the inclusion of more diverse populations to further gain clarity on treatment variability, the evaluation of implications of discontinuing mental health medications, that one's pretty important, as well as the use of low-dose placebo instead of a 0 milligram placebo to improve the reporting of blinding effectiveness. The National Institute of Mental Health also released a notice of information providing researchers with sufficient guidance on the type of studies it would fund for the development of psychedelic drugs. At the same time, the VA is revising a policy on medical cannabis use by veterans. All this to show the promise of treatment for veterans can be possible if critical gaps in research are resolved and further studies are conducted. I'd like to add just a couple things here at the end. When it comes to MDMA, it's currently in its third phase FDA clinical trials. The first two, it's passed swimmingly. After MDMA passes its third phase trial, which is for overall safety and efficacy, it's in a 2 to 5 year fast track to be prescription legal for at least psychologists and psychotherapists to use. Furthermore, I think that what we're going to see is that these psychedelics, psilocybin, especially LSD, which hasn't been studied for the VA yet, they help with depatterning and they help to calm the limbic system and deprogram PTSD responses. And even more importantly, if we can get a critical mass of Americans on using these substances in some sort of ritual manner, I think we can start closing the military bases overseas and stop dropping in paratroopers to kill people to steal other resources. And then maybe we don't have to treat people for their PTSD as much. St. Germain out for Thursday on the High at 9 News.
I know we're short on time. Do we have anybody want to comment on that one?
Well, I mean, these psychedelics, and can you explain a little bit more the part you said, like this is the important part? Can you explain why that is so important when you were reading your article?
Oh, shit. I just closed my tab. What was the important part?
That's what I was asking you, bro. What was the important part? Like,
hold on, I'm right here. No, I'll skim back. I'm sorry. Shit.
No, I do think the important part is the additional data on how it's going to manage PTSD and people who are dealing with that chronic, very high level anxiety. I mean, I think the broader idea here is that, whenever you start with a new drug, you start with a particular diagnosis, like PTSD in war veterans. But then we recognize that upwards of 90% of people have PTSD from one or another experience in their life. So we'll start with war veterans, but then as we gain more comfort with the use of the products, we'll be able to say, well, this could even be people who who experienced something combat related but aren't actually war veterans. They might have lived in a town where a bomb was dropped or something. And then we can expand it to people whose mother gave them the smaller half of the cookie and gave their brother the bigger half. We can just
100%.
go all the way down the chute.
So the important part was
outside of a cookie.
discontinuing mental health medications, especially SSRIs, prior to undergoing psychedelic treatments. Number one is the SSRIs can actually blunt the effect completely because they block the chemical gateways in your brain. But then number two is with ibogaine and ayahuasca, especially. Ayahuasca and ibogaine are both MAO inhibitors, and so there can be sickening and potentially deadly reactions between the SSRIs, certain food combinations, and those psychedelic drugs.
Dude, I could just listen to y'all 4 hours. Like, real talk, because I'm a nerd as fuck. I'm nerdy as fuck behind the scenes. But we got to keep it moving for our last story of the day, coming from a New York City-based 25-year board-certified integrative medicine internist and two-time best-selling author with Michigander roots. Also the CEO of Balanced Medicinals, doing the research and converting it to effective treatments. And why, might you ask? Because we know y'all ain't going to do that shit. When she's not treating patients with alternative medicine, she can be found in front of her video camera cooking and walking the Upper West Side. Here to serve us up our daily dose of truth and closing us out for the day, it is Dr. Mary Clifton.
Thank you, Rico. It's apropos that you should introduce me today because I have a terrible connection. It's like I'm hanging out at your place. So I apologize. But I've got a good article here. People living, it's from Marijuana Moment, and it's titled "People Living in States with Legal Marijuana Have Lower Rates of Alcohol Use Disorder," based on a federally funded twin study. So this study showed that people who live in states where recreational marijuana is legal experience lower rates of alcohol use disorder compared with those who live in states where cannabis remains illegal. Now, there's a lot of conclusions that they came to in this study. The researchers observed 240 pairs of twins in cases where one twin lived in a state that legalized marijuana and the other twin did not. When you're doing these twin studies, you can assess a broad range of outcomes, and some of the social and genetic components of the outcomes can be limited because you're doing these twins that have matching genetics. In this research, they found that out of these 240 pairs, the overall alcohol consumption did not significantly differ between those living in states that were legalized and those where marijuana remained prohibited. The real conclusion here is that the vulnerabilities to cannabis use were not exacerbated by a legal cannabis environment. They didn't find any link between legalization and an increase in psychosocial disorders, because it may be the case that adult use marijuana laws, this is interesting, and it speaks, Jason, to your stiletto stoner. Adult use marijuana laws increase consumption, but among infrequent or casual users, rather than those who consume heavily, regardless of criminalization. So, the legalization of cannabis just seems to make cannabis more available to those people who are going to use infrequently or lightly, rather than the stiletto stoners, rather than the serious stoners that are consuming, most days or frequent or even more than once daily. So not necessarily great news, but not necessarily bad news that this co-twin model, which is a good model for controlling socialization and genetics, and also accounting for early cannabis use and alcohol use disorder. These twins have been monitored their whole lives. Really didn't find that recreational cannabis impacted substance use, day-to-day functioning, or other vulnerabilities that you would have expected to see. And I'm Dr. Mary Clifton, living it up here in Manhattan. I'll give you guys a view of my universe.
Look at them views.
With a really cloudy day.
Yeah.
Hatton men.
Yeah.
Hatton men in Manhattan.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a good study. You know, these twins, did you guys ever watch that twin movie about how they got all these twins in research?
Yeah, with Danny
it was-
DeVito.
No, how did this happen?
Right?
No, she's not talking
I
about
mean,
Twins, the movie.
No.
I think
no. This
Rico
was
and
a bunch
Jason
of,
should do a remake of that movie.
I agree.
I'll have to get the name of it for you, but it was a bunch of twins that were brought into orphanages from like teen moms, and they were way back when, like in the 50s and 60s, and they separated the twins, or even more recently than that though. But when the twins were adopted out, they weren't adopted out as twins, they were adopted out as individuals. And so nobody really knew that this practice was going on, and then the state of New York followed these twins and did scientific experiments on them. So
What kind of experiments?
Just monitored their lives, because their genetics were identical, but their socialization was a little different. So they tried to see if they were behaving the same way, or if there were certain characteristics that were consistent with them being genetically identical and not knowing about each other. But there was a movie made about it, because there was a boy who went to school.
They basically had the feds following them,
was
watching them their every move all the time.
Can you
to
imagine?
compare each other to each other.
Without
Yeah,
their,
I mean, I can imagine
I
that.
don't know who should have given consent, but it was kind of nuts. But one of the boys,
I don't think
went
anyone had to
college,
give
and everybody
consent.
knew him.
Back then, I don't think
Well-
anyone had to give consent, Dr. Mary.
Well, there was a set of
keep it
triplets
real.
who ended up finding each other.
I mean, this sounds like
It's
a
kind
like
of
a like a Montel Williams special episode or something right here.
Oh no! We gotta close it out.
run that commercial. Run that commercial, Adam. Dr. Mary, you said the twins were now triplets? I'm confused.
Split it again.
There we go. Thank you all for getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience. Thank you so much for supporting us and tuning in daily and listening to the insanity and antics that is the developing cannabis industry. Thank you to all the haters for talking about us and thinking about us so much. We have the most immaculate living facilities. And just by the way, that's always being stocked with the most amazing exotic sodas and everything else like that. And you're always welcome to come and help yourself to any of our tasty snacks. Huge thank you to our sponsors, True Classic, LAXCC, DNA Genetics, and Wizard Trees with Burning Rope for helping us keep the lights on. And thank you all to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. And thank you to Cannabis for giving us a reason to do this. Thank you very much to Cloud Media Partners, House of Fuego, Zaza Simone holding us down in Clubhouse, and thank you all for helping making this space on a daily basis for y'all. Thank you for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. It's America's #1 daily cannabis news show.